Hi, everybody, and welcome to today's Fireside Chat, where we'll be discussing the relationship between people and business performance. My name is PJ Hough. I'm the Chief Product Officer here at Citrix, and I'm joined today by Andrew Filev, SVP, and the Wrike General Manager here at the Citrix team. Andrew, welcome. Uh,
Thank you, PJ, for
First of all,
hosting me. Looking forward to the discussion.
oh yeah, me too. Um, I wanted to start, Andrew, by talking a little bit about what you and I have observed over the last couple of years with the shift in employee experience and how you think it's impacting organizations and how they're leveraging technology to address it. And probably in that context, a little bit even about how you think products like the one that you helped start, right, are part of the mix of how people are approaching that problem.
That's a lot. Let me start with a simple thesis. Right now, there are two big forces that drive a lot of change. One is the digitization of businesses. So there's more and more businesses that either completely move online or add this e-commerce component or digital experience to their product and services. So we see more and more digital work. We see more and more data floating around us, and we see more and more apps. And pandemic only accelerated it, and done it. Some analysts think that it did it by years, right? And the other trend that pandemic created and accelerated is their switch of our work environment from their place where we think about our physical office as the place where we do the work, to the situation where we're thinking about our digital workplace as the place where we do work, right? If you ask me where do I do my work, it's like I'll tell you, well, I do it in Teams, in Wrike, in Zoom, in Slack, or whatever is your favorite stack of tools, right? So I'm kind of thinking less about, I do it in Santa Clara, or I do it in San Diego or in Dublin. So I think those big trends collide, and they were definitely both been put on a huge accelerant last year and kind of shifted the way we work for better and worse kind of at the same time. What do you think, PJ? If we think about those betters and worse, which ones do you observe, and how do you think it all nets out?
Yeah, I mean, I think you hit on two key things. One is, I think by necessity, a bunch of things got digitized in the last couple of years because really people really had to focus on how to could convert what was maybe transacted work between people in offices into work that could get done, remotely. I think you've seen organizations also become a little more elastic with regard to who they consider their collaborators, and the boundary between employee and vendor and contractor and all of that also shifted. But I do think that the downside was that many of the, I'd say, conveniences that we had allowed ourselves to have in the physical office space disappeared and forced us to really funnel all of our interaction with our employees into that digital experience. And in some cases, it stood up well to the test, but I think in others, we found it to be flawed. I think as maybe no surprise that the platform that we've built to work in a physical office environment for the last 20 years now needs modernization to work in a digitized work environment. And that means that the tools that we give to employees to work with, the way that we design work is probably going to have to evolve as rapidly as our transition to remote work has evolved. And I think that's going to it'll take a little time for that to catch up. So I see a pro in the sort of acceleration and the flexibility that organizations are seeing. But I do see a challenge that we're all grappling with right now, which is how do we optimize this new environment that we all find ourselves in?
Yeah, and I personally, right, I can speak both about myself and the employees that I work with, and also some customers. I think they're uh, it's been definitely an interesting time, to say the least, and very disruptive in many ways. So even if, some things like work-life balance, which theoretically is kind of pretty straightforward, right? Some things changed dramatically for better. I definitely enjoyed an opportunity to share a lunch with my kids and family and kind of spend more time together and spend less time in traffic jams. But also something were not as good. I think the employee burnout is top of mind for everybody. This kind of constant on 24/7, non-stop digital kind of overload with apps, tools, and messages has been pretty stressful for many of us, right? So there are pros and
Yeah.
there are cons that we all experience every day.
Well, and I think on that front, I'm not sure where we are in the Great Resignation, but I think there is this sense that organizations are going to experience real challenges in retaining the talent that they have today and in attracting net new talent. And some of the, let's say, advantages that organizations would have had in the past that were attributes of their physical work environment may matter less, and maybe some of them now look like constraints, where maybe a more flexible work environment allows me to consider opportunities that I previously hadn't. And so one area that I see companies investing a lot in, Andrew, is in really trying to figure out how do they retain the talent that they have, and not just retain it in the way that it currently is, but actually upskill and reskill that talent, because I think it's going to be the backbone of their organizations for time to come.
No, I agree, and this is also that all business leaders, including you and me, are kind of think about it on a daily basis, right? How do we make sure that our employees think that this is the best place for them to work at, and how can we give them that day-to-day experience, and how can we battle that burnout from simple tactics like I know at Citrix we like thank you days to give employees a break, right? To technology, which is definitely a part of it. Right now, people are overloaded with tools and overloaded with data, and it's kind of interesting where each one of those tools, the promise is to make our life better incrementally, but once you get too many of them, our life start to take a different turn. So I do think it's very important that we bring more structure into work. I actually love this metaphor. I don't know if you heard me speak about this before, but I love their concept of dark matter, right? And CERN has this quote that only 5% of their universe is visible, and the 95% is that dark matter. And we don't see it, but it exerts the gravitational pull on us.
Yeah.
And I feel the same way about the work we do, especially in digital environment, where we're getting those hundreds and thousands of messages. We're on all the time. We're working really hard. But that work is not necessarily reflected anywhere. Sometimes we don't get recognized for it. Sometimes there's no clear visibility into the actual status. Sometimes it's not clear where the bottleneck is or how much volume there is, right? And so the common denominator right now typically is a communication tool, like Slack or Zoom, where we just connect and talk. And yes, it does help us connect, but there's no kind of residue from it. You cannot pull a report out of that, right? You cannot see, you cannot display visually kind of the where you are. You cannot get the map of the territory. So that's where I feel where a lot of companies are stuck in between this kind of dark matter environment with just thousands of messages and communications, and this kind of select number of few enterprise tools. And there needs to be a solution for people that kind of helps and sits in between, so to say, right? Which can help with all of that, all of those workflows, all of that dark matter work, but is suitable and easy to use, and kind of much different from those legacy enterprise systems that only address kind of a thin slice of it.
I think that's a really good observation. I like the metaphor a lot. One other area that I think both you and I are very much aware of is that while businesses, I'll say, continued to work throughout the pandemic, the way that they expected their employees to work changed, in subtle ways, but very significant ways. Work is almost the same, but not quite. You do it almost the same way you did before, but here's the differences. And every one of those differences becomes a point of friction for employees as they think through, how do I get this task done? How do I figure out what the status is? And you combine that with the fact that that unit of currency that we all, I think, relied on in the office, which was time and being able to have brief interactions with people, that somehow got revalued to sort of a 30-minute meeting baseline, and that everything takes 30 minutes. And so not only is there this dark matter in the universe, but it's in bigger lumps now as well, I think, that are consuming the way people think about work. And actually having a tool set and a platform that is I think flexible across those environments is going to be really important because we're moving quickly into a world where some of us are back in the office and some of us aren't. So it's not like we get to abandon the way we were working when we were remote. We need to sort of bridge that back to people working wherever they need to work and still having a common set of tools and a common experience.
Yeah, you tease a very important concept. Sorry for going conceptual on you, right? But there, I see big difference between pull and push, or synchronous and asynchronous, right? When you said, hey, 30-minute chunks, it's a synchronous communication, right? And same goes for like texting and messaging in Teams and Slack, where we're getting bombarded, right? And so say there's 5 of us working on a project, or 50 of us, right? And if we want to keep each and everybody updated, that's a lot of those pushes that are going to keep us constantly on, right? As opposed to the pull model, which is kind of lean itself more to asynchronous tools, is like, well, we're living the same digital workspace where we contribute those updates, we contribute that information. There is that system of record, there is that one source of truth, but we're not getting bombarded by it all the time, right? And so we can consume it at our own pace, we can consume it at our own time, and we can only pull what we need. So I think that it's important when everybody shifted to work remotely, the first, and this is correct and this is obvious, but the first thing that we all thought about is like, how can we communicate with each other, which is very synchronous. And then we get surprised by the burnout, because it is synchronous, right? We're always on, as opposed to the complete tool set for that digital workspace requires a very strong and powerful platform that can work asynchronously for you. And that, I think, is the piece that some companies figured out and are extremely successful, and everything runs like a clock, and they can at the same time get their 8 hours of sleep, right? As opposed to some others are kind of burning midnight oil and just kind of in endless messages and meetings. I do think it's a critical component for that new digital workspace.
Yeah, I think you're right. And at a time, I think when we are, I think, demanding that employees work in a different way, we're hopeful that we've given them all the tools, but we do see still some gaps. I think it's really important to think about what the quality of that experience is for the employees, because at the end of the day, it's not only going to affect the productivity of the whole organization. It's easy to imagine an organization getting bogged down in that volume of information and not being able to make as rapid progress. But I think ultimately it leads to, I think, questions about attrition in the organization and underlying employee happiness and health and well-being. And as organizations, as you rightly point out, Andrew, like Citrix, have done things like thank you days, and encouraging people to have no meeting days and other things to try to create a cadence and a sort of split between work and personal life. At the end of the day, the tools that we give people and the environment, the digital environment in which we expect them to work, has a big impact on whether or not people feel fulfilled about what they're doing. And if you waste all your time moving around dark matter and moving around dark work and not getting to the core tasks of the organization, that's less fulfilling, even though you may be incredibly busy. And so I do think this tool set, not only is it transformational to organizations, it probably is one of the important things that we think about as aiding in that high quality employee experience and retaining people. And so maybe with that,
Yeah.
maybe I have one final topic for you that I wanted to ask you about. Um, when you think about organizations going forward over the next couple of years, and you think about their digital transformation, what kind of advice or guidance from the best practices that you've seen organizations move through this today do you think are relevant for people to keep in the forefront of their minds as they progress with their own transformations?
I think it's extremely important to keep our eyes on the goals and be very kind of outcome oriented, right? For example, I saw a very disturbing trend in the beginning of the pandemic. Luckily, it stopped, where employers kind of increase their surveillance as the way to manage your organization, right? And that's the counterproductive way, because it destroys trust, and trust is the foundation of the teamwork and getting something done. So I think it's extremely important to focus on the outcomes of the work. I also think it's important to bring transparency to the work, right? It's very, very different word from surveillance, right? Where transparency is about us having a shared picture on priorities of the company, right? Us having a shared picture, okay, if that's a priority, what's our plan to get to that priority, right? It's also where do we stand in that plan and how things are going, right? And what's at risk and what's not at risk. So I think that level of transparency, having one system of record, one system of truth for our work is extremely important and helps everybody be on the same page and push ourselves towards those business outcomes. And then with that, as we focus on that and as we get that clear picture, I think we can get back some of that work-life balance and then enjoy the positive side of the hybrid work, where again we can still get together, hopefully when the COVID sort of goes down, right? But we can also enjoy more flexibility in our work, less commute time, and just kind of that nicer balance all around, not just in some areas.
I think these are really great points. One of the expressions that I've latched onto, because I think it really speaks to that surveillance mentality, is measuring outcomes, not hours. And while the time put in organizations matters, really we have to flip to more outcome based metrics and outcome based tracking. And it's back to your point: do we all understand what the objectives are? And then what are the outcomes that we're driving toward? And do we have visibility into our progress as we march together towards those outcomes? I think that's maybe a great note on which to end. Andrew, it's as always been great to chat with you on these topics. I know we could keep going on many of them for much longer, but great to have you as part of the Citrix family, and glad to have your insights here shared with everybody today. Thank you all.
Thanks a lot. And before I say my final goodbye, I welcome, if any of you are interested in some of these topics, I welcome all of you to join us tomorrow at Wrike's annual conference called Collaborate. And you can see us diving deeper into some of their answers to the questions that we raised today. Thank you, PJ, and thanks, everybody.